Alright, let's see how bad it can be. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. It's time to hunt eBay. The first one that caught my attention tonight is called Replica Gibson Electric Guitar. All Gibson parts, body, stet. Okay, well, for $755, buy it now. That's not too bad. So let's check this out. Leading photo. Okay, we do have the Gibson Schaller tuners on here. These things have been going up in value lately. I used to sell these sets for about $130, but now the market's commanding almost about $200 for the plain sets. The ones that have the cool flip-out winding tuners even more, but we can definitely tell it had the cheapy style tuners because that's the screw hole orientations for that. So that's already looking pretty good, but what on earth is this here for? Did somebody put a strap button in the back of the headstock? Our next photo confirms for us, nope, those aren't the flip-out winding tuners. And then continuing on, yeah, that's definitely not a Gibson. We're most definitely looking at lawsuit era guitar, as they call them, which this photo definitely makes me think 70s, 80s. So we've got some sort of a Rosewood fretboard with two small of block inlays, but then if we zoom in here, it's got 3 screws, and it says custom, so that's not right. It's got the whole custom style logo, and then it says something Sun, but it's been obscured. And my guess is rather intentionally just to make people think it's a damaged real Gibson. But hey, this orange interior case actually looks pretty good. We'll have to look into that a little bit more. But oh, here's where we see it. Bolt-on neck. Almost looks like some sort of a name engraved on it. Some Frito chips in the background. And then, oh, we finally get to see the front. So we got some sort of a harmonica bridge on there. They were saying everything was Gibson. If that is truly vintage, that's like worth $100. I don't think that's an original tailpiece, but the knobs do look pretty good. So if that's $100, these knobs are $100, and the tuners, let's be conservative, say $150. That's $350 of the value right there. And whatever this thing is, as a Husk, at least worth $200. But that's before we figure out what kind of pickups we even have in here. And now looking at the outside of the case, no, don't think that was ever Gibson. However, it does have a cool vibe. I can totally see why somebody put a bid in on that. Continuing on here, a 76 Custom caught my eye. Because A, you always have to watch these wine red ones because sometimes they're so dark they're actually the Brazilian Rosewood Les Paul Custom. But what really drew my attention was the fact that we have a harmonica bridge on here. You don't find that on too many Les Paul Custom stock. The Les Pauls came with them, but usually they're fitted after the fact if you find it on a regular custom. But this one has so beautifully ambered over, it's disgusting, but awesome at the same time. It's looking like our tuners have been replaced on this particular one, if it truly is a 76. But oh my goodness, even the plastic has aged. Is that just a layer of tar all over this guitar that could potentially be cleaned off? Because there's yellowing to the lacquer which occurs, and then there's just literally tar from the smoke. But all right, flipping over to the backside, it is a true 76, but you generally don't find the Kluson Waffleback tuners that late. And then, yep, there it is. There's the Schaller filled in holes. If you know what you're looking for, you can find them, but those definitely do not stick out right away. Looks like we got Schaller strap locks on here, some replaced knobs. So with all that other stuff being replaced, the odds of this harmonica bridge being stock from the factory very low. In fact, it might have been put on there because the bridge might slightly be in the wrong place and they needed more adjustment room. But it's looking like we got some modern pickups, which are custom shop Seymour Duncans. Hey, not too bad. But whoa! That almost looks intentionally relict rather than natural aging. Ooh, 4,300. That's a bit much for the condition of that one, but if you're looking for that vibe, there's very few on the market that'll deliver that. There was an interesting 88 Les Paul standard that someone allowed people to scribble all over. And who's that? Aerosmith, Joe Perry, all the rest of the gang here. Late 80s Les Paul standards are pretty cool. You can find left-handed models. I mean, this is the famous era that Slash picked one of these up. You've got the Bill Lawrence, the original HBL, HBR set, which are circuit board pickups. You can tell it's got it because of these large screws right here. And generally speaking, signed guitars aren't worth a lot unless the person who signed it didn't normally sign things. Wow, we got Elliot Easton on this one too. Not just Aerosmith and Les Paul. Man, that must have been some sort of a party. But otherwise, this seems to be a really clean lefty Les Paul standard. So you might be wondering, if you're a guy that's just collecting a guitar like this, can you buy it and erase the signatures? Which might seem crazy, but to be honest, signed guitars generally, unless they're being sold at a charity auction, don't sell for crazy amounts. It's more of a cool novelty for whoever it was personalized and signed to. You probably can remove these, but you're going to be left with a shadow of the signature underneath there because the finish has reacted to that as well as aged differently because there was something covering it. So next time you have a guitar that you don't care for the signature of, just remove a tiny spot just to see how bad the shadow is going to be. But let me tell you, my friends, when you hit it under blacklight, it's not going to matter. You will always be able to see it. Which could also be a good thing if you accidentally erase Joe Perry's signature. It'll still be there under blacklight most times. But this was an open auction. It looks like somebody got it for opening bid. That's not a bad price for that one. And here's another signed one, 79 custom, reserve not met about 2,000, and then he wants 10 grand by it now. Okay. So when I first saw this, I thought, is that Randy Rhoads' signature? That would be kind of cool, because obviously somebody has modified the 79 to look like a Randy Rhoads style guitar. And Randy passed in 1982. It could be possible, because I know I just told you signatures normally don't make guitars worth too much more unless they're in a charity auction. But if you could have a Randy Rhoads signed white Les Paul custom, which he's well known for at this point in time, I think that would be one of the rare exceptions where that actually makes it worth quite a bit. But apparently this has Randy's mom's signature on it. And then we've got a whole bunch of other signatures back here too. Maybe it's not as clean as I thought it was initially. A lot of neck wear. It looks like our tuners have been replaced. Then you might say, hey Trogly, how do you know those tuners have been replaced? There's no additional holes here. This guitar initially came with Gibson branded Schallers, but these are Schaller branded Schallers. You can also tell that's the Schaller style tip. The Gibson branded ones had the nice keystones. This one caught my attention because you don't see too many of these. 1999 SG Les Paul Custom Shop. SG Custom in a natural cherry finish? You don't see that too often. Generally, SG Customs, you find them in white, black, couple of other custom colors. It's got the ABR1 bridge. It's the 61 style with black plastics. Okay. We've got the Kluson style tuners. And okay, yeah, that is a interesting custom. There was also an auction for an 85 Studio Standard. Studio Standards are really cool guitars, as well as the Studio Customs. You can check out my reviews and demos that I've done a long time ago if you're interested. But essentially, the Les Paul Studio was introduced in 1983. And then they also did some fancier upscale versions that still had the binding, but yet they still have the dot inlays. They become cult classics because they're slightly thinner and made of different materials, at least the first 2 years being made of alder. So that makes them slightly lighter, and the whole thing with the 80s is they were pretty heavy guitars. So people who have bad backs have been really flocking to these lately. But the market is usually really dry on these, but lately there's been a lot of these popping up, so you can actually get some somewhat reasonable deals. If anybody has like a really clean Studio Standard or Studio Custom, please let me know. I'd like to add it to my collection. But I guess at the end of the day, I do have the Studio Custom XPL, which you can learn all about in this episode. It's the king of Studio Customs. Here was a gorgeous 85 Standard. It's still available, make an offer, or you can fight it out in the auction ring. But it's got a couple of cool things going for it. So we're technically in the last year of the Norlin era. However, things don't really start to change for a couple of years. So finding a two-piece center seam, it's not as rare as it was in the 70s. It is still a little bit more special as compared to most. So it's got that going for it. Looks like somebody's replaced the nut. But as far as cool wine red standards, that one's not too bad. Still has the original chainsaw case. I would say that is probably top market value for something like that in this condition. But if you could pick it up around $3,500, I think you'd be golden. And hey, here's another cool one. So this is a candy apple red Les Paul Standard. Basically, the story behind these is they're built very similar to the Heritage series guitars. We're talking about the Heritage 80, Elite, and Standard. So they have the same exaggerated dish carved top to them, so they're beautiful. And they've got the ebony fretboards. And there's actually quite a few different runs of these. And they're pretty common. I actually have documented one of these on my show. But I never really liked these as much as the Heritage series guitars. But they've kind of grown on me. But they have that same limited edition serial number and everything too. Now, unfortunately, somebody's added a mini toggle in here, so I wonder if they've also messed with our pickups. But you've got your 3-point top adjust bridge. Hey, we still have the diamond posi lock buttons. If you're interested in that one, I would suggest asking him to show you those pickups, because the addition of that switch makes me think something might have been played with at some point in time. We've got an SG Supreme from 2002. So far, it looks like it's just a Husk that somebody took all the parts off it. It's either that or we've got a crack somewhere or it got like some shipping damage. That's usually the reason why guitars like these get parted out. You've got your cool split diamond inlay, I guess you could say. Famously featured on the Trini Lopez model, as well as some Gibson Super Strats. All right, headstock's looking all right. Nut looks a little bit worn. The bad thing about these guys is a lot of time you'll get a fret nib gap, but that's pretty common in the 90s and early 2000s. That one doesn't look like it has it. Whoa, lots of scratches back here. And there it is. However, it looks like it was already repaired. But okay, fair point. Sell it to somebody who wants to touch it up, make it look perfect. generally speaking, these run about $2,000 to low $3,000-ish range. So I guess if you could get it for around $1,000, throw some parts in it, I think you'd be all right. Keep in mind, this does not come in a case. This one I wanted to feature because Gibson Custom Shop Gig Bag? Japan occasionally gets custom shop gig bags, and it's because gig bags are very popular in Japan. Other times these are meant to be a gig bag for over top of your case so you don't get scratches there. I'm not quite sure what the story of this particular one is because there's not enough photos. This one I clicked on because it's outrageously overpriced. A Gibson The Ripper, the L9S. I think a really clean one might run you $5,000, and that is top value. Generally, you're looking between, $2 and $4. But this one is heavily worn in. It's got a signature on it, claiming to be Rick Denko, who is a Canadian musician in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This next listing caught my attention because, look there, the beautiful patent applied for stickers still on the pickup rings telling us we've got Tim Shaw PAFs. I love it when guitars still have it on there. It's cheesy. I'm surprised any of them have been left on at all. Sometimes guys would leave them on and they just pick straight through them and then you're just left with like a reflective cover underneath it. So if you ever just see a little square sticker on your 80s PAF Tim Shaw equipped guitar, that was stock from the factory. This is looking really clean. Maybe a little bit of clear coat aging to it. But hey, I'm curious if anybody knows what causes these black circles on a pot. Because I've seen that on multiple occasions of things that have been completely untouched. What else do we got? There was a P100 pickup auction. That was a fantastic price for a set of those. I know P100s aren't the most popular Gibson pickup out there. Not that you can really tell it from this photo angle, but it's a stacked P90. It gets rid of the hum, but it also changes the dynamics of the entire pickup. And because of that, it's very common for 90s Les Paul Specials to get them swapped out. So to find the error correct P100s to restore them back to original can sometimes be difficult. Here's a set of pickups that was like, hey, I'm from 1983. I've got a generic patent number that Gibson used on a whole bunch of stuff. And I looked at the photos, it's like, oh yeah, that's an original Dirty Fingers set from 1984. Looks like it is a single lead version, so you can't coil split these. But cool, you even get the pots. This is one of those auctions that's perfect for if not enough people see it and know what it is, it might fly under the radar. This pickup set with the gold pole pieces in this condition, at least $600. Probably could get up to $900 if somebody really needed it. And to finish out our guitar hunt today, here's another beautiful one, 1983 Leo's Les Paul reissue. So Leo's reissues, they're not my favorite. They're one of the early prehistorics before Gibson started doing them themselves. But the iconic thing with them is the Gibson logo is like obnoxiously high. This one is actually pretty tame, all things considered. It looks like it needs a little bit of a cleaning on the headstock, but otherwise, pretty late serial number. And darn, somebody's had Schallers on here at one point in time. Not quite sure I agree with near mint when that happens, but hey, everybody has their own threshold of how much that can be modified on a guitar. But for me, tuners are a big one. Because you see all the chipping around here? That's caused by the washers of those other tuners that were put on there. And it means the headstock had to be reamed, and now you've got conversion bushings on it. But here's the cool thing about Leo's Les Pauls, is the fact that you can find Kalamazoo made and Nashville made versions. This is a Nashville. So Kalamazoo ones will have a normal serial number stamped in the rim right here. But hey, looks like Randy's dad sound tested this one. It's always cool to see. And then you might look at these pot codes and go, okay, 137, that means it's a CTS pot. 82 means it's 1982, and we're in the 30th something week. The rest of the code is covered. But then you go over here and you go, what, 1980? 49th week? Those must be replaced, right? No. For whatever reason, 82, 83, you'll generally find 2 volume pots from 1980 and 2 from the current year. Maybe they found some old parts that they forgot that they didn't use up. Maybe they did it as a prank on people 40 years into the future just to make them confused about their guitars. Who knows? All right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.